Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. We are talking running backs today with our Bucs offseason outlook as it continues. John Ledyard and I talked about quarterbacks yesterday. Make sure that you check out that podcast if you missed it. Today, JC Allen and myself are going to be talking running backs. And it's a position that's near and dear to my heart. Interesting position for the Bucs this offseason, JC, because really they only have one running back under contract. That's Keyshawn Vaughn. You've got Leonard Fournette, you've got Ronald Jones, and Giovani Bernard, all as free agents.
Big room to fill. You know, you've got one guy there. Usually you want to carry at least four, depending on the experience and the play of your lead back. Yeah. Sometimes five. I think this roster is probably more of a four running back group as it was the last two seasons. So you've got to add three guys, and where that's going to come from, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's retaining some of your own guys. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the Bucs do, how much they're willing to put into this group if they do go free agency route or bringing a guy like Leonard Fournette back. And I'm very intrigued by the whole process.
It really is. This is a position that's near and dear to my heart. I'm an older guy, so I grew up when you had to have 1,000-yard running back or you're not going to the playoffs. You know, that's just how it was back then, right? And, one of my favorite players of all time, John Riggins, got the autograph from the Diesel. Okay. Was born in Virginia, so I grew up a Washington Redskins fan. So that was a long time ago, though. What's that?
Commanders fan, you mean?
Nah. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. Hail to the Redskins. That's still ringing in my ears when I was a kid. But then I moved to Kansas City and grew up a Chiefs fan because that's just what you did. And Christian Okoye really became my favorite running back. So went from the Diesel to the Nigerian Nightmare. So I grew up with sweetness, right? Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Earl Campbell back in the day, Bo Jackson. I mean, there was a lot of exciting running backs, right? I'm just saying, like it used to be a running back league. Yeah. And maybe it'll get back to that. I don't think it will. I think the passing game is here to stay. And, things are cyclical, right? We went through the run and shoot with the passing game, and that kind of got figured out, but I think the passing game is here to stay. So having said that, JC, you better be able to catch the ball if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneer running back, right? And you got to be able to pass protect, because we saw Ronald Jones go from a guy that was on the verge of 1,000-yard season to a contract year where he was pretty much riding the pine because of playoff Lenny.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, especially in this offense too, in this system, you have to be multifaceted. You have to be able to catch the ball, you have to be able to pass protect, and you have to be able to obviously run the ball. So, I mean, if you don't have all three of those traits, and as you said, as we're moving towards a more pass-heavy league, in order to be a complete three-down back, you have to have all those, and you have to have them in spades, or else you're not gonna be able to accomplish much. See, I grew up in New England, obviously, as everyone knows. So, I had Curtis Martin for a minute, but then after that, we had Antoine Smith and Clark Dillon, Corey Dillon, and that was probably the best running back that those Patriots teams have ever had. They had LeGarrette Blount, who had some great seasons and everything like that. So it's always, for me, it's always been like, you can just get a running back. That was Bill Belichick. Just get a running back and plug him into the system. If he can catch, if he can be a good third down back, because
and Jarvis Green Ellis, Rex Burkhead, Sony Michel.
They just plugged whoever back in there, and they had success.
But the Patriots really, with Tom Brady, they had the Patrick Pass, they had the Kevin Falk, they had the running backs that could catch the ball, James White, Ben Vereen, exactly. So the Patriots really kind of helped usher in what the Buccaneers are looking for now, which is running backs that can catch the ball. So, let's just, I'll say this. I think I don't know this to be true. This is speculation on my part, but I think if Ronald Jones just had some Celsius before third downs, right? I think if he went out there and had a Celsius maybe the pass protection would have improved. Maybe the hands would have improved in the passing game. I don't know that. I'm not stating that as fact, but it's an educated guess, a little bit of expert speculation on my part, But
Anything.
what I do know is when you're talking about Celsius, you were talking about the best energy drink. Why is it the best, JC? Because there's no sugar and no preservatives, but there's plenty of flavor. I don't know how the scientists do it, but they make the sparkling Fuji apple pear taste like apples and pears. The strawberry guava tastes like strawberries and guavas. The orange,
berries taste like snozberries.
I can't drink orange juice anymore. It's too acidic. I got the old man, acid reflux going on, but I love the taste of orange juice. And so the sparkling orange really fits the bill. I know John likes the wild berry. There's tropical vibe. Heck, I just tried, I should say I tried again because I had it before like months ago, but I'm kind of back on the cola kick now. This cola really flavor tastes just like your favorite colas. So the sales pitch, there it is. Now, where can you find these tasty beverages that are going to give you all the energy you need without the crash? Well, you can go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator. You can find them on Amazon. You can do the subscribe and save like I do. I get my wife the watermelon flavor. I get the orange flavor delivered on a monthly basis, and I save money with the subscribe and save. So I have to go out and find it. But you can also click on those banners on pewterreport.com, and you can find out where to get Celsius also. So our show, the Pewter Report podcast, proudly presented by Celsius, energized by Celsius. And if you're not doing the Celsius thing, folks, you better get with the program.
Yeah, it's great too. I just started a new diet, down 8 pounds in a week.
Good for you.
And I'm really low carbs, trying to watch my carbs and sugars. And guess what? Celsius doesn't have any sugars, and it's less than 2 grams of carbs a serving. So
boom, there you go, JC.
And it gives you the energy you need to go throughout the day. So it's beautiful.
Yep. JC, this is kind of your week, right? You're feeling better. You had, I don't know if it was COVID or a cold. I think I had COVID a couple of weeks ago and kicked that. But if I type in JC Allen on Twitter, I see a little blue check mark.
Oh,
look at you. You got verified. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. It was nice. I applied. My birthday was last Thursday. So
right.
Out of the win, I've tried to, obviously I've applied a few times, but I was like, whatever, let's just apply, I applied. I woke up Friday morning to the check mark. And out of the strangest thing out of the world was John Cena was following me. I couldn't see the follow at first. I had to double check, but I couldn't. But yeah, it was crazy. So
that's fantastic. Well, you've had quite the week, man. It's nice getting better.
Nice little Saturday. Went to Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond, because I had time.
Right. There you go. Speaking of John Cena, I'm watching Peacemaker. And I love it. I love
it's so good.
The 80s jams on that too.
So good.
80s rock is badass. Let's stick with the program though, which is running backs today. JC, the Buccaneers, as we mentioned just a couple minutes ago, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, Giovani Bernard, those are the free agents. Keyshawn Vaughn is the only running back. I mean, technically Kenyon Barner, but I mean, chances of him making the team are, I think, slim. But right now, Keyshawn Vaughn is probably a lock to make this team. Now, is he going to be the number 4 back, the number 3 back, the number 2 back? I don't think he's going to be the number 1 back. At least I hope not. But let's start with the guy that's on the roster right now, with Keyshawn Vaughn. What did you see? What did you like? What did you not like about his rookie season?
About his rookie season, there was definitely some issues, I think holding on to the ball, just getting adjusted to the pro game.
Yeah.
Coming into
Did he make enough strides last year in his second season to make you want to see more?
I think he did. I don't know if I necessarily want to see him as a starting back, but I think he showed enough that he could definitely be a consistent contributor in a committee. And I mean, now you've got like 4 or 5 guys who are true lead backs in the NFL that don't come off the field. But as a committee guy, I think he can definitely give you something. His pass protection has definitely improved. His hands still, I think he gets a little too excited. I know Tom throws a fastball, but I would love to see him really go on and work on his hands a little bit more this offseason. There's no doubt that, when he finds a hole and he can take it to the house. We saw that. We've been able to see that. And even back in college, you saw that against that LSU game, running behind one of the worst offensive lines in college that year.
Yeah.
He's able to hit the next level and hit the next gear. I just think it's a little more time, more reps, and he'll be able to really fill in as a contributor. I have him, as potentially the number 2 running back on the depth chart, depending on some of the moves they make going forward. But I'm not buying Bruce Arians saying he could be a number 1 back.
I'm not either.
I love Bruce, but this is a guy who said D. Delaney was this guy all year long.
Right. Well, also too, I mean, rewind to 2019. He was excited about Peyton Barber. He was calling Peyton Barber a lead back, right? and I mean, to me, Peyton Barber is like a poor man's Ernest Graham. I know I'm dating myself a little bit here, but if you remember Ernest Graham, I mean, he was a serviceable guy, I mean, catch the ball and run, but he was never going to be a 1,000-yard guy. And I just haven't seen enough yet about Keyshawn Vaughn. And I don't know that I want to see a whole bunch more, but I'm not against it either. I'm kind of on the fence,
I plays and some really bad plays.
Yeah. I think he made some strides, but I mean, if I was Jason Licht and I had my running back depth chart, right, 1, 2, 3, and 4, his name on the magnetic strip is on 3 right now, and I'm looking for 3 more guys on this team. Now let's start at the top, right? Well, no, actually, let's not. Let's start with the obvious, which is Ronald Jones. He's not coming back. Right?
What?
I mean, Rojo's gone. I'm just telling you right now. He's gone.
Yeah, Rojo's. Yeah, he's
Rojo gone. He didn't want to return. I don't think the Bucs want him because he just is not a fit in terms of being able to catch the ball and pass protect. They can't trust him. His coaching staff can't trust him. Ronald Jones does not want to come back and get 4 to 6 carries per game and be the guy that's just going to step in when Leonard Fournette or whoever the starter is next year, needs a blow. I think this is an amicable divorce. It's, I don't want to be here, see ya, and they're like, I don't want you, see ya. I would be shocked if Rojo came back. I
totally agree with that. Yeah, I just don't think you could kind of see that the team soured on him, and he, maybe soured on the team. He's very immature as well. Doesn't take criticism well. I just think he needs a change of scenery, and in his mind, he's a guy that
Rojo's in the pit, not the palace.
Not the palace. Yeah, he can jump on the coupe with no mileage and leave Tampa Bay. I just don't think it's a fit anymore. And he's not a guy who's going to buy into that team philosophy that this team has. He's one of the only guys, I think, in that locker room that really is concerned about numbers and touches. And you could see that kind of, in his demeanor throughout the season. Right. So, yeah, see you later, Rojo. Thanks for almost a 1,000-yard season and your contributions. But, you had abilities to step up and you just haven't been able to step up to the table. So
that's right. Yeah. And listen, the thing too is when we're talking about running backs, and I know that there are some members on the Pewter Report staff, I'm not going to name names, that don't believe in running backs, that believe that they are afterthoughts. Okay, that's fine. But Bruce Arians believes in running backs, and collectively, I mean, taking out the 6 carries that Blaine Gabbert had, a couple of reverses. I mean, the Buccaneers had about, let's see, how many carries did Tom Brady have? Tom Brady had 28 carries, and these are including kneel downs. So take out maybe 30 years. Well, take out about 50 rushes, right, between the kneel downs, the Blaine, who was undefeated, by the way, as a quarterback when he played in games last year, and Tom Brady had, and a couple of those end arounds, Scotty Miller, Chris Godwin, etc. Jalen Darden. The Buccaneers had about 350 or so rushes last year. And then you throw in the number of catches that the Buccaneers had from the running back position. I mean, Leonard Fournette had 69 catches. He was the 3rd leading receiver behind Chris Godwin at 98, Mike Evans at 74. and Leonard Fournette had 69. So he was the third leading receiver on this team.
And he missed 3 games.
And he missed 3 games. Giovani Bernard had 23 catches for the Buccaneers last year, including 3 touchdowns, right? Leonard had 2 touchdowns receiving. So the running backs play a big part in what Bruce Arians and the Bucs offense want to do, but it's not just running the ball. And that's kind of the point we're making is going forward, whether it's free agency, the draft, whatever, the Buccaneers need to find guys that are just about as good catching the ball as they are running the ball. And we have a couple of names we're going to get to later here in the show, but Ronald Jones just is not a fit for what the Buccaneers are doing now and moving forward.
No, not at all. I just don't think there's any redeeming qualities for him to come back. I mean, pass protection struggled, catching the ball struggled. Yeah, he was probably the best pure runner, but that doesn't get you anything in an offense that requires you to be all 3. Or maybe you could get by if you're really good at 2, but when you're only, I would even call him really good at rushing the ball, slightly above average running the ball. Just not going to cut it. He's just gone. New change of scenery. Thank you. You got a ring. See you later.
Back in the 90s, Ronald Jones, you give him 20, 25 carries. I think he's pretty good. But the thing is the Buccaneers are not just about running the ball. And it became detrimental to the offense because when Ronald Jones was in, that was a key for defensive coordinators to blitz. Because one of 2 things is going to happen. When you all of a sudden, when Ronald Jones is in the game and you blitz, you're essentially run blitzing because you expect him to carry the ball, right? It's kind of a tell. It's kind of a tip off that if Ronald Jones is in the game, they're going to run the ball. Right. And so when all of a sudden you've got safeties coming up and linebackers creeping up at the line and you're stuffing the box, getting ready, what's the quarterback going to do? He's going to check out of it, right? And then you're playing right into the defense's hands because now you've turned Ronald Jones from a running back to a pass protector or receiver, right?
Exactly.
And that's the detrimental part of it is that was the chess game that defensive coordinators could play against Tom Brady, Byron Leftwich, etc. Is you got Ronald Jones, we're going to load the box now. Now you're going to want to throw the ball, and you're going to throw to a ball to a guy who struggles catching the ball, or we're going to show blitz to make him stay in and pass protect, and we're going to get a sack because he's going to whiff on the block.
Exactly. Yeah, I just like I said, thank you for your contributions over the last 3 years. Your rookie year, you did absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And working for a ring, but your time has come, and it's see you later, guy.
Yep.
Just how it is.
Want to thank Leo there for the super chat. We appreciate that. I want to keep Lenny and Gio. Okay, let's talk about Lenny. Right. Let's talk about the Bucs lead back, and really he proved to be that. It wasn't just playoff Lenny. This was a guy that picked up where he left off and had a fantastic season for the Buccaneers. It's unfortunate he got injured along with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans in that Saints game. I think if Lenny plays all 4 quarters, they get 10 points on the board and they beat the Saints at home and go undefeated this year. That just wasn't the case. But let's take a look at what Leonard Fournette was able to do in his contract year. He came back and won the starting job. 812 yards, 4.5 yard average, 8 touchdowns on the ground. And then as a receiver, we talked about that. 69 catches on 84 targets, 454 yards. Wasn't the best average. It was 6.6. But he certainly was effective in moving the chains, made some really tough catches, including a one-handed catch in the Rams in that playoff game. Scored a pair of touchdowns there. So you add it all up, and Leonard Fournette is over 1,200 yards. He's actually close to 1,300 yards as a weapon in this offense. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on obviously he's a good fit, but it comes down to money, right? And the Buccaneers, they can create plenty of cap room. That's not really the issue. But going forward, right, you're going to have Devin White that wants big money. You got to pay Chris Godwin and Carlton Davis this year. JC, it's going to be a situation where, knowing Jason Licht and Mike Greenberg, they're going to put a line in the sand as far as how much they're willing to pay Leonard Fournette per year. and I don't know if it's 5. I don't know if it's 6 million per year. I don't know if it's 7 or 8. But where did the Bucs draw that line? What would you feel comfortable with bringing Leonard Fournette back for on a contract basis? How many years and what's the average?
I wouldn't go more than 2 years. And man, I'm in the same boat as John. I don't think you pay running backs. I think 5 million is probably pushing it. That's my top dollar that I'd give him. No more than 2 years, 10 million. I'll give him 7 of it, 8 of it guaranteed. Almost the whole thing guaranteed. But I'm not paying big dollars for a running back. I'd rather spend that money elsewhere. And that's nothing to take away from Leonard Fournette and his contributions. I think he's a great player and is great for this system. I just, he's not the best runner in the world. I think that he's grown tremendously as a pass protector. We knew he had the hands. The year before he came here, he had over 700 catches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 72 catches. So it's like we knew that he can catch the ball, but I just, I just don't feel comfortable paying running backs that money. And I think you can go elsewhere in the free agency market and probably get someone, and also, spend some capital in the draft and get somebody. This is a very deep running back group. Yeah. I wouldn't even mind double dipping in the draft at running back.
Yeah. The only problem is just 6 draft picks this year, unless you get some compensatory picks.
Or start trading around. But yeah, I mean, I'm moving on from Leonard Fournette if he's asking for anything more than 5.5 million.
I'd feel comfortable at 5, which essentially be doubling what he made last year. And I think you can justify that because Ronald Jones was making over $1 million last year of his contract. So you're kind of just saying, okay, we're going to take kind of what we gave Rojo, give it to you, Lenny, and give you a little bit of a bump. And then we'll draft a running back on the cheap. So we'll have the drafted running back, and we'll have Keyshawn Vaughn, who's still on his rookie deal, very cheap. And then Leonard, right? And then maybe you bring back Giovani Bernard. We'll get to Gio in a second, but I'm kind of with you. Like, I've already gone on record saying Leonard sold me. He's a great fit for this offense. There are a lot of free agent running backs out there that we'll get to in a minute, but I wouldn't mind paying the guy, but I agree with you. It's a 2-year deal, and I would feel comfortable maybe at 5 because Leonard's 27 years old right now. Spot Track has him at 2 years, 6.1 million per season, and that's a little rich for me.
Yeah, I've seen him up to 8 million a season, and I'm just not interested in paying anywhere near
I would
that.
not do that. Yeah, and see, the thing is, Cordero Patterson, who I've kind of been campaigning for a little bit with the Falcons, and why not? The guy, even though he's 31, he signed with the Falcons for 1 year, $3 million deal. He had 618 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, and 548 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. So you add it all together. That's over 1,100 yards combined.
Not like he's been a running back his entire career where he's taken that pounding. So a 31-year-old running back comparative to a guy,
a wide receiver.
A guy who's been the lead back is a little bit different. So, I mean, I think Pro Football Focus has Cordell Patterson at around 6 million per year, and
Spot Track had him at 9.1. Listen, I would talk to Cordero Patterson. I don't know what his
focus has Leonard Fournette at 2 years, 16 million, 8 million per year, 11 total. I don't see it.
I don't see the Bucs paying that. I'm not saying he can't get it, but I just don't know teams that pay running backs anymore. And the ones that do, it's like once these general managers get snake bit, and I know Jason Licht got snake bit paying Doug Martin, right? It's like, Saquon Barkley, is he going to get money from the Giants? I mean, the Panthers are kicking themselves right now for paying Christian McCaffrey all that money, and he just can't stay healthy, So, and same thing with James Conner. Some team is going to pay him. Now, he stayed healthy in Arizona, and James Conner would be a good fit in Tampa.
That's my guy.
Right. I mean, he's a fantastic option. Spot Track has him at 2 years, 5.9 million per season. That's a little rich. But I just can't see him staying healthy because he's such a physical back, But
that's why I think that if you can double dip in the draft, it's worth it. If you bring in James Conner for
running back, should draft him, right, JC?
Exactly. You bring in James Conner for a year, if he's down, if he's looking for a year contract, or and then you draft a guy early enough in the 3rd round, 4th round maybe, and you bookend that with a 6th, 7th round gem, because you can find some good running backs. And I mean, you've started the research. I've started some research. There's some really good running backs that you can grab out of this draft late that could, be special teams contributors. And, even if you get a speed guy or change your pace type back,
right.
I think you can find that later. But yeah, John Connor, I really like that fit for the Buccaneers. I don't think he's going to cost more than Leonard Fournette. He's a guy who can, do it all, 3 down back. He doesn't have breakaway speed. He's not going to, bust out long runs, based off his speed, but he's going to stay in the field all 3 downs. He's good at catching the ball after, and his stats. He had 18 touchdowns this year, 15 through the air,
he did.
15 on the ground, another 3 in the air, 375 yards receiving.
Total 1,100 yards, and some change. So he really kind of proved himself there in Arizona, and he had to split carries with Chase Edmonds too, right?
Exactly.
I'm with you. I would not be opposed to James Conner. Just has to be the right price, and there are a lot of running backs out there this year, right? And I think that the Buccaneers are going to be looking for value, because what always happens is first day of free agency, first 48 hours, the teams that need guys grab them and overpay, right? And then the market kind of resets. And you always have 1 or 2 guys that thought they were going to get paid, like Leonard Fournette last year, that don't. And those are the kind of guys that I think Jason Light's going to be patient and go out and get. And one of those guys was Giovani Bernard. Now he was like a late cut, but let's talk about Gio. We all kind of thought that Giovani Bernard would come in and be that 3rd down back in Tampa, but to Leonard Fournette's credit, he really took that role and became a 3 down back, not just a 3rd down back, but a 1, 2, and 3 down back. I liked what I saw from Giovani Bernard when he was on the field. He was pretty healthy in Cincinnati, but then suffered the knee injury in week 3 against the Rams, and then had that hip injury when he got caught with some friendly fire in was it the Bills game, right?
Yeah.
That caused him to miss some games. And Giovani Bernard, he ended up showing out in the playoffs to a degree, but in terms of his receiving ability, and that's really why they brought him in. Giovani Bernard had
didn't see enough of him.
I know we really didn't, but he had 8 carries for 58 yards, averaged 7.3 yards per carry, and those limited dashes. Had 1 run of 24 yards that was on a draw, but really the receiving role is where he kind of shined for the Buccaneers. Caught 23 of 29 targets, 123 yards. Not a huge average, but caught 3 touchdown passes and had a 32-yard catch. He is 30. I think part of the reason why he came to Tampa was to be that 3rd down back, JC, but also to play with Tom Brady. So Tom Brady's not here.
Yeah.
And Gio wasn't used on 3rd down. Does Gio want to even come back to Tampa next year?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you're getting any of those guys back. And I don't necessarily think Gio, I don't think the Gio experiment worked, to be honest with you. I think that you go somewhere else and you can bring another player in. Giovani Bernard, I could easily see him going back up to the Bengals or another team, but I just
picked the wrong year to leave Cincinnati.
I mean, imagine him trying to catch that 3rd down pass, 4th down pass from Burrow instead of Samaje Perine. I'm sure that's completed. But I just don't. I think this is going to be a revamped, rehauled group. You're going to have Keyshawn Vaughn there, and I think there's players. I mean, I don't think they're going to lure James White away from the Patriots, even though he's coming off like a really bad injury, anyways. But there's some guys you could look out to the free agent market. Obviously the draft, and we'll get into some draft guys, in a little bit, but. I don't a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and do some damage as a runner. Marlon Mack, maybe that's a guy you look at, and he can come in here and kind of fill that role. There's other guys out there as well. Philip Lindsay, who's been proficient as a catch passer throughout his career. So
one of the names that's kind of interesting to me, and we'll talk about free agency here just 1 second. If you had to pick one but not the other, would you want Leonard back at more money, or would you want a cheaper Giovani Bernard?
I'm not paying more money for Leonard.
Let's just say $5 million. If that's your price and you can get Leonard back for $5 million, would you want Leonard back at $5 million, or would you want Gio back for around $1 million?
If I had the $5 million, all right. If I brought, he's not a priority by any means. I mean, he's like one of the last guys to sign, which is another reason why I don't think he's going to be back. But I'm looking to lock up definitely Godwin. I want to get Carlton Davis. If I've got a franchise Carlton, that's great. But I want to work out something quickly to open up that money too, because I don't want to have 17.
Well, I mean, we're not shuffling the salary cap. I'm just asking you straight up. If the Bucs could afford Leonard Fournette at $5 million, do you want Leonard, or do you want a cheaper Giovani Bernard?
It's a tough question.
I know it's a tough question. I'm asking you the tough question. Which one? Pick one.
Giovani Bernard.
Okay. I would take Lenny at 5, just because I know what I'm getting. And he's probably a little pissed off he didn't get more money, and I like pissed off runners.
Okay.
So now let me ask you this, then we'll move on to the free agent running backs. If you had to put money down, do you think that Giovani Bernard will be back, yes or no? And do you think Leonard Fournette will be back, yes or no?
I just told you I don't think either of them are back. If I had to put money down, I don't think either of them are back. Of course, it's crazy. We're so early in this process, and there's so much money that needs to be opened up and spent and allocated. I think for more important positions. If you've got the money left over after you brought the guys like Davis and Godwin and Whitehead and
even Whitehead and Golston, right? You bring those guys back first.
Then yes, if you've got the money left over and you're doing a 2-year deal with some void years, you prorate it, whatever, then I'll take Lenny back. I by no means want to come up here and say that I do not want Leonard back. I do not like Leonard. I don't think he's a good fit. I loved what Leonard did, and I think he could be a great player. I'm just more worried about the money.
Right.
And, when it comes to paying running backs, it's a gamble. It's the biggest gamble there is out there.
Agreed. Speaking of which, there's a couple of guys we'll just kind of run through here that might be some good Buccaneer fits along the lines of catching the football. And of course, we talked about Cordero Patterson. It's got to be the right price, though. I mean, the Bucs aren't paying $9.1 million per year over 2 years like SpotTrack has him there for. Even at $6 million, that's still a lot of money. I think the Buccaneers would want, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. Let's just address the David Johnson thing. David Johnson's kind of cooked at this point in time. He's not the guy he used to be at age 30 now that he was in Arizona when he was catching everything and having, close to 2,000 yards or whatever it was, whatever ridiculous number it was of rushing and receiving yards that he had for Bruce Arians. He's just taken a lot of punishment. He's had a lot of injuries. At the same time, this was a group that signed LaShawn McCoy when he was cooked. So I wouldn't put it past if he's out there for the veteran minimum, which would be probably under $1 million, and he's maybe your running back 4. I don't know if he brings any special teams value, but I'm just saying I wouldn't rule David Johnson out. I'm not campaigning for him or wanting him, but this is a team that brought in LaShawn McCoy when obviously he had nothing left in the tank.
They did bring in LaShawn too before they had Fournette. So I mean, LaShawn was kind of the guy who was, hey, you can catch them,
Thank
ball.
God they brought in Fournette. Imagine if LaShawn McCoy was RB2 in 2020.
He was almost RB2.
He was without Fournette, he would have been for sure.
I think one guy who's out there who, he's approaching his 30 year, but has kind of got pushed to the way. He's had a good season, but kind of got pushed to the wayside by a young rookie running back who I know a lot of Tampa fans loved. He was my favorite running back in the draft. But running backs don't get paid often. I think Leonard Fournette probably has a better opportunity to get paid than this guy is Melvin Gordon. He's a guy who can do it all. He can catch the ball. He's not a bad pass protector. He almost had 1,000-yard season last year, 8 touchdowns on the ground, splitting time with Javonte Williams, 213 yards through the year, another 2 touchdowns there.
It's interesting because he made $8 million last year in Denver, but Spotrac has him as a 1-year, $5.2 million guy. And he's almost 29, which is kind of like almost at the end. But on a 1-year deal for $5 million, I agree with you that would not be a bad complimentary back because he is a very prolific pass catcher. And I think he's maybe even a step ahead of Fournette in terms of a runner, depending how much gas he has left in the tank. So, yeah, that's not a bad name. I agree with you there. I'm open to that.
There's not many guys out there, but there are a few.
Right.
There are a few guys who I think, if especially depending, right, Scott, at where you draft a guy. If you're drafting a guy in the 3rd round, end of the 2nd, or you're moving your picks around a little bit. If they move back from 27, mid-2nd round, there might be 1 or 2 guys. The thing about the draft, though, and I haven't done extensive research on the running backs. I know you've dived in a little bit more. Is the top running backs? Most of these guys on the board could fit Tampa Bay's system. It's a very versatile group of running backs. We're not seeing the real big bruising backs out there.
Yes, there's actually a lot of good fits in this year's running back class that I think might surprise some fans. We'll get to those in just a second, but Chase Edmonds, depending on his price tag, this is a pass catching running back that the Cardinals had for the last couple of years, and he was the second fiddle to James Conner. Might be looking for an expanded role. He's not a feature back, but I was surprised that Leonard Fournette was in Tampa because Bruce Arians likes the 1-2 punch. We saw that with Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones in 2019. We saw that with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette in 2020. And Leonard got obviously most of the work this year and well-deserved. But Chase Edmonds, 592 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns last year, 311 yards receiving. And Spotrac has him as a 3-year, $5.2 million per year guy. I don't think he's going to get paid that much. I really don't. If he's in the $3 million range, I think he might be a good value and an upgrade over Giovani Bernard, especially since he's younger. He's 26.
Yeah.
Another guy that is somewhat interesting is Jerick McKinnon, who had a really good postseason for the Chiefs. He really impressed me. And I forgot he was on the Chiefs even. I was like, wow, who's this number 1? He really tore it up in the postseason, had 54 carries for 231 yards, averaged 4.3 yards per carry. In the playoffs, had a rushing touchdown, but had 31 catches for 279 yards and averaged 9.9 yards receiving. I'm sorry, 9.0 yards receiving and had a touchdown. So this is a player that really fits what the Buccaneers want, which is a pass-catching running back. The other running back in Kansas City, Darrell Williams, is also, I think, a very good style of fit for the Buccaneers. He had a solid year in Kansas City as well. Matter of fact, his injury is what caused McKinnon to really see some playing time. But he was a part-time back, age 26, at 558 yards, 6 touchdowns this past season, but had 47 catches for 452 yards. That's a 9.6 yard average and a 2 touchdown performance in the passing game. A bigger guy, 5'11", 219, where McKinnon's not as big. But I wouldn't, I would keep an eye on the Chiefs running backs and see how much they're going to get in the free agent market. Spotrac has Darrell Williams, 3 years, $2.2 million per year. That's not a bad option to invest a young running back in that can run and catch the ball, JC.
No, not at all. They already did have a Chiefs running back on the roster all season pretty much. So maybe they go that route another. There's a few injury guys too that are out there, and some prove it guys who are kind of, they had their opportunity and, you could bring them in, look around at like a Raheem Mostert with the 49ers. I mean, he
got hurt with week 1.
Yep. He's going to be 30, but has had great track record, some really good seasons. Shouldn't be able to get him for too much money. A guy like Rashad Penny from the Seahawks, who
I like Rashad Penny coming out of San Diego State, but I don't know if he's the pass catcher that the Buccaneers want or need. Now, he did come on. I was glad to see it. He was a late bloomer because, man, this guy, when they drafted him in the first round, he did nothing for the first couple of years in Seattle. He got hurt a lot, but he did really come on this year. I'm glad to see it.
And again, guys like Marlon Mack coming back from injury. A lot of people were really wanted the Bucs to make a move for him at the trade deadline. Has got versatility to do it all, be a potential, 3-down back. I'm not saying the best, but I mean, if you're not paying guys like Melvin Gordon or Leonard Fournette, because I really don't think there's anybody else out there that really deserves to get paid more than $5 million. Maybe James Conner as well. You throw those guys; those are the three, bigger money backs out there. You're looking at guys who are either reclamation projects or kind of one-trick ponies, and I think that's why it's going to be. You're going to really have to supplement this group with someone in the draft.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm really intrigued by some of the names that could be available though, and it's going to be.
I could see Jason Licht and Bruce wait it out and see who the value backs are, and then add a guy. I don't think there's going to be any rush to sign a running back. Maybe the first week or two in free agency, and they're going to see who's available. I'm not saying running backs are a dime a dozen; they kind of are, but I think the Buccaneers are going to treat the position like that. What about Tom asked? What about Tony Pollard from the Cowboys? I love him. The only problem is he's a restricted free agent, so I don't see the Bucs making a move necessarily for him. The Bucs did like him coming out.
What round pick was he?
What's that?
What round pick was he?
I want to say he was a 3rd round pick.
Okay. Well, I mean that would be
4th round pick of the 2019 draft.
4th round pick. If they tag him at the original tender instead of a 2nd round tender, that'd be something that I think the Bucs should or could entertain.
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to tag him higher. He's actually the best running back in Dallas.
Yeah, they're going to tag him.
Yeah, he's better than Ezekiel Elliott at this stage.
I'm just playing the maybe what if, could have,
should
have.
No, I like it. He's a good fit. The guy can run the ball, catch the ball, return kicks. I mean, why not? So JC, if I had to put money on the Bucs drafting a running back this year with 3 holes to fill, right? Maybe they sign a free agent or 2, but they're still going to need to draft a running back, right? They drafted Keyshawn Vaughn 2 years ago, but I think this is the year they're going to do that. And the thing is if I had some money to put down on it, it's not just a bet. I would invest that money in a running back, but the other place to go invest is, of course, at our friends over at Uni Financial.
At Uni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Dude, congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Uni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
JC, we got to get to Colorado, man. And in order to do that, you got to save some money, right? You got to save and plan for those trips, and you got to plan for your kids' college. You're going to need to save money for that. You're going to need money for retirement, right? Well, the place to go to have all those questions answered is our friends over at Uni Financial. Folks, I am an Uni Financial customer, and I was before they even became an advertising partner. Managing your family's wealth means more to Uni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With over 40 years of experience in the Tampa Bay area, let Uni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. If you haven't done so yet, folks, give Uni Financial a call for a free, no obligation consultation to find out what they can do for you and help you with your financial planning. 1-800-868-6864 or visit them on the web at aimuni.com. All right, JC, let's talk about some running backs, right, in the draft. There's a couple of names that you like. There's a couple of names that I like. It's to the point where, you're seeing guys like Jonathan Taylor get drafted in the 2nd round, right? Indianapolis, the Bucs liked him when he came out. But we're just not seeing running backs taken in the 1st round anymore, right? I mean, the guys that have, when they're healthy, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, they can do some things. They can help you out. But running backs have become kind of that dime a dozen position in the league because you can find guys that are undrafted that can help your team sometimes not always the best approach. I mean, Jonathan Taylor was worth the second-round pick that the Colts invested in him, led the league in rushing. Same thing with Derrick Henry when he's healthy, but it's a position, though, that with the emphasis on the passing game, unless you are one of those Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, complete players where you're just as good as a receiver as you are a runner, you're probably going to be second, third, fourth round pick. I wouldn't be shocked if the first running back isn't taken halfway through this second round this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think it correlates exactly to why running backs aren't getting paid, because the position has been devalued because of the success that later round running backs have had in taking over and becoming these great players. I mean, if you look at just the last 3 Super Bowls alone with the Rams, the Chiefs, and the Bucs. What am I doing?
Yeah.
The Rams, the Chiefs, and the Bucs. They all finished either 23rd in rushing yards or below that. Yeah. And they all finished in the 5th or higher in passing
Rams
yards.
could not run the ball on Sunday, could they?
They couldn't run the ball.
Run the ball.
So I mean, as you mentioned multiple times during this podcast, is a passing league now, and you don't have to necessarily pay these premium prices on running backs in free agency, and that's translating into the draft as well. People do not want to pay these first round picks. I mean, you get the extra 5th-year option, but people don't want to pay that. So you're looking at the second round, and I think that's going to be a common trend throughout the years. And, especially when you look and you see a guy like Jonathan Taylor being able to do what he's done. Cam Akers has shown flashes. I think J.K. Dobbins is really ready to take a step forward this year. Those 3 guys, part of the same draft class, if he didn't get hurt. And I think teams are looking around and saying, hey, we're not going to invest in this position. If these guys are 23, by the time we get them in, draft them, they get utilized, they're going to be 28. And do we really want to pay $8 million to $9 million a year if it's not someone special like a Christian McCaffrey?
Yeah, no, good point. Well, when it comes to drafting running backs, that's not exactly been special, JC. I mean, if you look at Jason Light's draft picks when it comes to the running back position, he's done really, really well. Jason Light's been one of the better GMs, or the best GMs really, at drafting since he came to Tampa. I mean, his first overall pick was the 7th overall pick. His first selection as general manager in that capacity was Mike Evans. Hits a Hall of Famer right out of the gate. That's fantastic. But his first running back in 2014 was Charles Sims, who was really nothing more than a pass-catching third down back that complemented Doug Martin and just did not really dazzle you or wow you at all as a runner. So certainly not good value there. In 2017, that was a draft class loaded with players. I mean, Kareem Hunt was the guy I loved out of Toledo. Loved it. And it came down to Kareem Hunt or Chris Godwin in the 3rd round. And I can't say they made the wrong selection, JC, because Chris Godwin's a hell of a player. And we know what happened to Kareem Hunt off the field, and that really kind of derailed his career. It's being revived now in Cleveland. But he had a fantastic rookie season, Hunt did, for the Chiefs. And didn't he lead the league in rushing as a rookie?
Yeah, he was great.
So, having said that, they settled for Jeremy McNichols in the 5th round. They waited and waited and waited. They needed a running back. They waited too long. Dirk Cutter, who was former coach at Boise State and an Idaho native, said, I like that kid from Boise, and he was terrible. He didn't even make it out of camp. They cut him. And he, I think, is still on a roster somewhere. I think Tennessee as a backup running back, but he is the definition of a 5th round back. He is not good. Ronald Jones, 2nd round pick, good runner, not a good receiver, and he is on his way out. So
I think he could have real success though in another offense, another scheme that doesn't ask him to do all that.
He goes to Baltimore. I could see it, right? They just ask the running backs to run the ball. Yeah. I could see him sign with Baltimore, and him and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. That's a nice 1-2-3 punch right there, and that's where Rojo needs to go, in my opinion. Yeah, but he's really been the best and most productive running back, and he's not going to get a second contract, right? Then you got Keyshawn Vaughn, who I think a lot of people, myself, you. Probably, I think John Ledyard, Mark Cook was scratching his head when Keyshawn Vaughn was drafted in the 3rd round. And that was a little high, I think, for Keyshawn. He's been an okay back. We talked about it at the top of the show. I want to see more. Do I want to see more? Not sure, but he's going to be on this team and he'll get the opportunity. And I hope he grows and develops. He was better this year than he was as a rookie. We'll see. And then 7th round, they drafted Raymond Calais from Louisiana. He ended up being on the Rams. I'm not sure if he finished with the Rams. He was a practice squatter, but he was really a kick return guy. That's kind of why they brought him in. He's not really a running back. So those are the running backs that Jason Licht has drafted. I think that's been his blind spot.
3 Super Bowl champions on there.
Well, okay, but but my point is though I think this is the spot that's been the blind spot for Jason Licht. And I've wanted him to draft running backs. He's not drafted the ones I've wanted, which has really pissed me off. I like Jonathan Taylor a couple years ago, but there are. What's that?
Antoine Winfield is a nice little consolation prize.
Oh yeah. I'm not saying that he's made bad picks. I'm just saying that he hasn't drafted good running backs. So and I understand you can't have it both ways, right? You can't have Jonathan Taylor and Antoine Winfield, and I like Antoine Winfield because I don't know that they would be using Jonathan Taylor the way they would need to use him to get the value out of him as a 2nd round pick. Right. Having said that, there's a couple running backs that we like. Let's start with the guy that's in our mock draft. This is Tyler Algier from BYU. Now, this you like James Conner. This is the college version, the draft version of James Conner. He is a big bruiser, 5'11", 220 pounds, and really had a fantastic career at BYU. Had over 1,600 yards rushing. He can catch the ball. He's good in pass protection. And if you like James Conner, this is the cheaper, younger version of James Conner. This kid can flat out play. He can run you over. I don't think he's going to time really well, which is fine because I think the Buccaneers have other needs to address in the draft. So if you want to draft a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick running back, this is, I think, the draft to do it because that's where the fits are for the Buccaneers in this. But this is the guy we have in our current mock draft in the 3rd round. And I like this kid a lot. I'd be interested to see how well he times. I don't think he's going to tear it up in Indy by any means, but he's a heck of a good player. There's a couple of other players too. Let's just go through and mention some of these guys. JC, Kenneth Walker from Michigan State might be the top running back in this year's class. 1,600 yards, 18 touchdowns. What scares me is he had 13 catches for 89 yards. Now, does that mean he can't catch the ball or they just didn't throw him the ball? Because they looked at Rojo's numbers, which were similar at USC, and said, well, they just didn't throw him the ball that much.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they didn't. So Kenneth Walker, probably a 2nd round pick. I don't think the Buccaneers are going to want to invest a 2nd round pick. That probably rules him out. Maybe rules out Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. Breece Hall from Iowa State, just because I think those running backs, those 3 are probably 2nd round picks. It's probably a little too rich for the Bucs blood, in my opinion, with them having needs elsewhere. And we'll see. Free agency changes everything. But your thoughts on Walker, Hall, and Spiller?
Yeah, I like all 3 of these guys. I think all 3 could come in and be really productive backs of this team. Obviously,
I think Hall for sure catching the ball, and even Spiller. Those guys have a better track record catching the ball.
And I mean, you look at Breece Hall too, 6'1", 220, is projected to run somewhere in the high 4.3s. I mean, he's got speed. He can catch. He can run the ball. I think there is a lot to like about his game.
He reminds me of a little bit of a smaller version of Leonard Fournette because he's an upright runner. He's not the power back that you think he is. He's not going to run you over. He'll kind of tiptoe and then accelerate. He dances a little bit. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Le'Veon Bell in his prime too, where he's a very patient runner and then hits the gas.
Yeah.
But he's faster than him.
Isaiah, good size too. He's not going to run as fast as Breece, but I think he's a workhorse back. He's going to be. He's got decent power, decent speed, a lot of great instincts when it comes to running the ball, and he can catch the ball as well. So And I mean, plus, you're keeping a guy in state, which is always, going to appease the masses.
Well, some other guys, Jerome Ford, who's a Tampa native from Cincinnati, bit of a one-year wonder, caught 21 of 22 targets for 220 yards at Cincinnati, has breakaway speed, 1,300 yards, 19 touchdowns. I'm not sold on him as a great fit for this scheme. I think he's more of an outside zone runner, but I'm intrigued by Ford. I want to do some more film work on him. One of the guys I loved was James Cook. That's Dalvin Cook's little brother at Georgia. I thought he was the better running back at Georgia this year, but he's only 5'11", 190 pounds. But you talk about a pass-catching guy. This guy is a fantastic pass catcher. He rushed for 6.4 yard average, 7 touchdowns, 728 yards for the national champion Bulldogs. Caught 27 to 30 targets, 274 yards. So he's the kind of guy that can run the wheel routes down the field. He can run the route tree a little bit. He's not just an angle route and a screen guy and a little, flare to the flat kind of guy. He's a little bit more of a well-versed wide receiver that can also run the ball. But a 5'11", 190, JC, probably more of a third down situational back type.
Yeah. Another guy that was in our first mock draft that I've really grown to like too is Rachaad White from Arizona. I think that he would be an outstanding pick if he's there in the 4th round. I think he's probably stinks in the 3rd round, so you might have to spend that 3rd round draft pick on him. But I like him as well.
I do too.
There's some guys out there. I mean, even looking towards, that's why I said, the 7th round, if they do get that, projected compensatory pick that they might be getting in the 7th round, I wouldn't mind them grabbing an extra running back in the 7th just to be, for a special teams, a guy who's going to be a change of pace back, maybe your burner, and can just grow and develop behind whoever is your number 1, whether that's Leonard Fournette, whether that's Melvin Gordon, whether that's James Conner or whoever you bring in.
Whether it's the back that you draft in the 3rd round, right? I mean, it could be, whoever. Rachaad White, we did have him in our first mock draft. I like him too. I thought he played pretty well at the Senior Bowl. He's kind of a glider and a strider rather than a dasher or a basher at the running back position. He's kind of a big back, but doesn't really play like it. He'll plow into guys and get an extra yard or two, but he's not going to break a bunch of tackles. He's a slippery runner, though, so he'll make you miss. But he hit 1,000 yards on the nose as a senior at Arizona State, averaged 5.5 yards per carry, 15 touchdowns on the ground. What the Bucs will like is he caught 43 of 48 targets for 456 yards. That's a lot of production right there. I think he's a player that is a strong day 3 option, maybe the 4th round. Another guy that's grown on me is small school guy, South Dakota State's Pierre Strong. Now, this guy ran for 1,694 yards, averaged 7.1 yards per carry. Granted, it was against smaller competition, but he had some big games, including a game against Minnesota, where he really tore it up as a receiver and a runner. 18 touchdowns for him. He had back-to-back years with 20 catches, 22 for 150 yards. This past season, 20 catches for 177 yards. So again, you got to be able to catch the ball. He had a 65-yard touchdown on a screen pass in the East-West Shrine Bowl. That's another name to keep in mind there in the day 3 selections. Another name to keep an eye on is Max Borghi from Washington State. Boy, you got to be a draftnik or a Pac-12 fan to know who Max Borghi is. But he's had a pair of 800-yard seasons, and that was 2 years ago before COVID and then this past season. And he had 12 touchdowns rushing and 11 touchdowns rushing in those 2 seasons. Only caught 16 passes for 156 yards this year, but he wanted to really prove he could be a runner and run the ball. And they call this kid Christian McCaffrey Jr. I think he's a day 3 selection. He's not nearly as talented as McCaffrey, but the resemblance is there. Now, I'm not just talking the skin color, the game, the way he runs, he's in that mold. But JC, as a freshman, he caught 85 passes for 593 yards for the Cougars. So you want a guy that can catch the ball and be a factor on 3rd downs? This might be a good RB3, RB4 for the Buccaneers. And he might not even get drafted. Running backs typically slide down the draft, but this is a name to keep in mind.
I know a lot of people out there, and I see it in the chat. Kyron Williams as well.
I like Kyron, and I think he's a good pass catching guy,
Yep.
good pass protector. I don't know about the running skills, and I'm not sure about his size at 199 pounds. Again, kind of like James Cook in that build a little bit. He's not a big guy. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how big he measures at the combine, and then also how fast he is.
Yeah. Also, I mean, be on the lookout too for cap casualties. So, I see someone said Arians won't use a rookie. I don't necessarily think Arians won't use a rookie, but he's definitely going to want a veteran back there. So depending on who that is, I think, and who they're able to get and sign is going to really depend on where they start drafting and what type of style player they draft as well. If you're locking up Leonard for 2 years, maybe you get more of a speedier guy.
Right.
Then, so there's really a lot of factors that's going to play into this. The one thing I do know is that there will be at least 2 more new running backs on this team.
Yeah, there will be 2. I agree with you. Yeah.
Come
at least 2.
Exactly.
I'm with you on that. Now, I do want to burst some people's bubble, because I know we have some Gator fans out there, and I know that this guy got a lot of hype at the Senior Bowl, talking about Dameon Pierce from Florida. Okay. Here's the thing with Pierce, right? Everybody loves this play right here where he scored a touchdown without a helmet against Florida State. Helmet came off, he kept running, and I appreciate his effort and his toughness and all of that. He's a good back. I even kidded it in the Pewter Report group chat when he had that pass protection drill at the Senior Bowl, right, where he stoned the pass rusher, and that kind of was up on Twitter. I said, well, Bruce Arians is going to draft, and it's because the guy can pass protect, and he's a decent runner, okay? But the problem with Pierce is he only had 100 carries last year for 574 yards. Now, he averaged 5.7 yards per carry, and there's a reason why Florida fired their coach. Maybe this guy, should have gotten more opportunities. But I just don't see the juice. His longest run was 27 yards. He did have 13 carries or 13 touchdowns. He can bang it around the goal line. I get that. But where's the workload for a guy that's 5'11", about 215, 220 pounds? He had 9 games, only 9, with 10 carries or more. Never had a 100-yard game at Florida, right? In fact, he never had a game with 90 yards rushing, okay? 15 carries, 52 yards versus Georgia. It was one of his better games. Last year, he had 13 carries for 57 yards in a touchdown. And that came against UCF in the bowl game. I went to the Gasparilla Bowl, right? I watch UCF. I'm a UCF fan. UCF's one of the worst tackling teams in the nation. Their defense is like Swiss cheese when it comes to stopping the run. Yet Pierce only got 57 yards on 13 carries, a 4.4 yard average. I just think he's a pedestrian guy. His best game came against Samford, not Stanford, Samford. 7 carries, 78 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. They opted for Malik Davis, 92 carries, 574 yards. Both those guys were kind of the tandem there. If you're going to go with a tandem guy, I've got a guy for you. And this is a guy that might even go undrafted. He's a day 3 guy. Zaquandre Smith from South Carolina, right?
Sleepers.
What's that?
Bringing out the deep sleepers.
Exactly. Now, what I like about this guy is he's got some juice and he can catch the ball. Now, Kevin Harris was the lead back, but not by much. Kevin Harris had 660 yards for South Carolina, averaged 4.3 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. But Zaquandre White had 583 yards. That's less than 100 yards between the two, but he averaged 6.6 yards per catch. I should say carry. That's what I meant to say. Had our longest 63, pair of touchdowns, but this guy can catch the ball as well. Only had 19 catches, but 202 yards, averaged 10.6 yards, scored 3 touchdowns. This is a guy that's got some juice to him, and he's also a factor on kick returns. So I don't know that he did enough to really warrant anything more than a late day 3 draft pick, but it's interesting that a guy who was a part-time runner at South Carolina got invited to the Senior Bowl and got invited to the combine. So there's something about this guy from a traits perspective, and I see it, and you can see it on the film, that this guy can run and catch the ball. He can play special teams, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Buccaneers are interested in him, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those guys they kind of eye on day 3.
Yeah. And then there's one other guy that's I'm intrigued, and we talked about him while the season was still going. But that's going to be Tyler Goodson out of Iowa. Another one of these guys who can run.
Tristan Wirfs is going to want him in Tampa. You know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, he is. Put up over 1,100 yards on the ground last year, 4.5-yard average, 6 rushing touchdowns, 31 receptions, 247 yards. So he's got soft hands, and he's not the most explosive athlete. He's not going to run away from you or anytime. He's going to be around 4'5", 4'4", but he's shifty and he's elusive, and he can make guys miss. So while his pass blocking obviously is going to need some work, he doesn't shy away from it at all. So that's another guy that I've looked at.
A little bit of a bowling ball too, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of bowling balls, holy smokes, people, what a segue that was. Listen, if you're looking for a good time, I'll tell you where to go. Pin Chasers, right? Bowling, food, fun. Bowling leagues, birthday parties, corporate team building, fundraisers, with 3 locations to serve you and have a whole bunch of fun. They got one over here in Pasco County, East Pasco at Zephyr Hills, about 15 minutes away from me. I live in Wesley Chapel. They've got 2 locations in Tampa, one off the Veterans and one in Midtown, kind of by One Buccaneer Place, the Advent Health Training Center. But this is the place to go when you're looking for family fun and you're looking for some good food. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribing to our Pewter Report TV channel. But you can see the pizza, and it not only looks good, it tastes good. The food there at Pin Chasers is amazing.
I went there this weekend. My son wanted to go bowling, and I'm like, well, what better place than Pin Chasers? We went to the one in Zephyr Hills because we're a little bit closer that way. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's a clean environment. Food was really good. And we had a blast there. Pricing is really well too. So,
they got beer, they got a bar there. Soft drinks for the kids, salads, all kind of sandwiches, and it's great food. You wouldn't think going to a bowling alley you would get great food, but you do there at Pin Chasers. That's what makes it special. So if you're looking for a place to have a birthday party for your kids, if you're looking for a corporate team building environment, get your crew, get your employees, and schedule a bowling session on the weekends or after hours. It's a great place for happy hour to do a corporate team building event. Also fundraisers. They get their own private room where you can have guests and speakers and your own little private party at the Pin Chasers locations. Visit pinchasers.net and let the fun begin with let the good times roll, JC, right? That's what you're going to do at the Pin Chasers. Let the good times roll. Yeah.
And the bowling ball roll. I just want to leave the people with this because I know we're going to be wrapping up here. But since 2009, the highest paid running back to lead the winning Super Bowl team in rushing yards wasn't even a running back per se. It was Percy Harvin, and he made $2.5 million. Other than that, you had Ray Rice in 2012 making $2 million, and you had Leonard Fournette last year with the Bucs making $2 million.
You had
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players since 2009 making under $1 million. One of them only making 320, and James Starks with the Packers. So, I think that's another thing that comes down to it. I mean, Leonard Fournette, you want him back, you do, but do you want to pay him that amount of money? I'm not exactly sure if that's the way you want to take it. If that's the route you want to go, because, history's got a way of repeating itself, and it's done so since 2009. So I think that if you're going to get a running back, you got to make sure that you're paying him a comfortable amount of money. You don't want it to handicap you going forward.
I'm with you. And that makes a lot of sense. And so really what you're saying is the Buccaneers should not pay any more than $2 million for any of the running backs if they want to have a chance to get back to the Super Bowl, right?
Two and a half is the
2.5.
top.
Okay.
And then maybe that's Cordell Patterson, because he's like that wide receiver running back.
I think he's going to get more money than that. I hope he doesn't. I'd love to see him in Tampa, but it'll be interesting to see how not having Tom Brady here is going to affect how free agents look at the Buccaneers. And is there enough to still get people excited? Maybe without Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Byron Leftwich sell the notion, come to Tampa. We're going to run the ball more, right? We're not going to be slinging all over the yard. We don't have Tom Brady anymore. We're going to want more of a balanced approach, Not sure I would believe them because Bruce is a quarterback whisperer, right? He's a pass first kind of guy. You got the offensive coordinator who's a former quarterback. Of course they're going to throw the ball. But you better be able to catch it if you're a running back, right, JC? That's
the deal. If you can't catch, you can't pass block, you're not going to live long here in Tampa Bay.
Agreed. Well, we hope that you enjoyed today's Pewter Report podcast. As always, make sure that you are following us on social media at Pewter Report on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And make sure that you're subscribing. Yeah. Hit the thumbs up, hit the like on our podcast here on Pewter Report TV, on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe too. We're on our way to 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. We passed 7,000 a month or so ago. Let's help us get to 8,000. We need your help, your support. Greatly appreciate that. Speaking of support, if you are so inclined, we appreciate the super chats that we get from time to time. We had, I think, one today. But if you're looking for ways to donate, maybe you like JC's articles or mine or John's or Matt's or Casey's. Maybe you like the Pewter Report podcast. You want to give us a tip. Well, we get an internet tip jar. You can find that at pewterreport.com/donation. Help support your favorite Bucs website. All the money we get from our donations goes right back into the technology and some of the travel that we do. We just got back from the Senior Bowl. We're going to the Combine next. Those trips, obviously, part of our expenses. And you help us by giving us the super chats and the donations. We greatly appreciate that. And that allows us to go on location and get the information and turn it right back around and give it to you guys. So make sure you go to pewterreport.com/donation, and you can donate for as little as $10 with a one-time donation or only $3 a month. That's like the cost of a cup of coffee. Actually, I think coffee's more than that these days, the inflation. But it's a great way to support your favorite Bucs website. So we appreciate that. For JC Allen, I'm Scott Reynolds. We'll be talking offensive line tomorrow as our offseason Bucs outlook continues with John Ledyard. So for JC, I'm Scott Reynolds. We appreciate you joining us on another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.